Welcome back to the Nutter Center. I thought he was a little crazy at the time for doing that, but it worked out. But
is I'm highly competitive. If we're playing checkers, Parker, I want to beat you. Simple as that.
This idea of arriving doesn't exist. We are always becoming.
Do you remember the day that Mark McGuire? Yes, I remember. Said I MF'd you all the way back to the dugout.
And the Raiders take it. They go undefeated in Horizon League play this season. They are the Horizon League regular season champions.
This is The Perspective with Parker Testa on WWSU 106.9.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to The Perspective right here on WWSU 106.9 FM. Thank you for joining us. It's an exciting day here today as we welcome the show back. I mean, I'm excited. There's so much going on here at the station, and I'm so excited to bring back this show. And we have so much to get into today. So much updates to the show, I might add. We have, a new logo that you might have saw if you are on our YouTube broadcast. Thank you for joining us on YouTube here today. We have a new logo. We have a new intro like you just heard. So I can't thank everybody who was on the show last semester enough. So thank you to all of those whose clips from the interviews got into the intro. Those were clips from the interviews with Alan Roach, Alex Sogard, Lance Scheib, as well as Ryan Hawk, and some calls that I've had from Wright State Athletics here on campus. So thank you for joining us, everybody. We have so much going on today. We're going to talk some NFL Week 2 action, some Wright State basketball schedules. Those just came out, which is exciting. We have also volleyball is in action here today and this weekend up in Marquette at the Marquette Invitational in Milwaukee. So there's so much exciting stuff going on this week, and we're also going to talk some MLB playoffs. So thank you for joining us. So this is we might as well get right into it. We're also going to be joined by Pat Boylan, who's with the Indiana Pacers, who is their radio commentator, as well as the play-by-play commentator for the WNBA's Indiana Fever. He's also the sideline reporter on their television broadcast. So that was a fantastic interview with Pat. We talked so much. We talked about so much. So be sure to stay tuned for that. That's coming up here in about 15 minutes. So it's really an exciting time. So I'm excited to get going here today, bring this show back. So we might as well get right into it. We have a awesome slate of NFL games this weekend. Kicked off last night with the Washington football team and who did they play last night? I can't believe I'm blanking. The Washington football team and the New York Football Giants. So there is so much NFL action going on this weekend that's really exciting. So we have let's talk about that game last night for a second. What a performance from Taylor Heineke. I mean, the guy went off. Ryan Fitzpatrick goes down, and they knew they had a capable backup in Taylor Heineke. I mean, the dude threw for 336 yards and 2 touchdowns last night with 1 pick. I mean, he was one of the guys that gave Tom Brady. That was the team that gave Tom Brady their best competition of the entirety of the playoffs last year was the Washington football team, and Taylor Heineke played his heart out last night, fantastically. So it was a lot of fun to watch that game last night. What a performance by Graham Gano as well. I mean, the guy scored like 19 or 22 fantasy points or something like that against the Washington football team last night. I would know I'm going against Graham Gano in fantasy what do you want to do? The guy was, excellent last night was Graham Gano. He kicked like 5 field goals, but add on 2 extra points. Almost won the game for the New York Giants. So, but Dustin Hopkins kicked a game winner last night at the end to win it for the Washington football team. Looked a little bleak for the Washington football team last night there towards the end. But what a game. We couldn't ask for a better start to week 2 in the NFL this week with that game last night. So what a performance by the Washington football team. And Daniel Jones played a lot better than I thought he would. I mean, the dude threw for 250 yards, 1 touchdown, sacked 4 times. Their offensive line did not play well last night. Self-inflicted penalties last night was killer for the New York Football Giants. And I honestly don't know what some of the things that Joe Judge has made or said or done. Some of the decisions that he's made are questionable at that. So you really, it just really makes you think about why they hired Judge. But Joe Judge hasn't done a poor job by any means. I mean, he's working with what he's got. Their GM Dave Gettleman has drafted fantastically at sometimes. So there was a lot of speculation on whether Daniel Jones was a good pick or not coming out of Duke, but I mean the guy still has things he has to work on. So I mean you just have to think what's the goal here for the football Giants. Obviously the goal is to win the Super Bowl, but this team is not going to be competitive, I don't think, anytime soon. But after a game last night, who knows? It's really a crapshoot whether or not you are the Giants are going to be competitive. I really don't know. What a way to kick off the NFL Week 2 last night with that game. It was a lot of fun. So coming up in towards the end of as we get to Sunday, there are lots of fun games as well. The Cincinnati Bengals here locally take on the Chicago Bears. They travel to Chicago to take on the Bears at Soldier Field. The Cincinnati Bengals, I was incredibly surprised by last week. I mean, they gave Minnesota a heck of a game. A game that went to overtime, and Evan McPherson kicked the game-winning field goal there at the end to win it for Cincinnati in overtime. So, what a game for the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm incredibly impressed by the way that the Cincinnati Bengals played. As far as the Chicago Bears go, Justin Fields, Andy Dalton, who's it going to be? Who's it not going to be? That's the biggest question that we've discussed here. So, I think you have to go with Fields, right? I mean, there's no way that Andy Dalton is going to be playing better than the football Giants. Why is that? Or I'm sorry, not the football Giants. There's no way he's going to be playing better than Andy Dalton. I mean, really? I mean, Justin Fields, based on how well he played in the preseason, he has to start. If you're Matt Nagy, Justin Fields has to start. And I know Andy Dalton looks like, he has an insane haircut and a beard and all that, and he looks fantastic. But Justin Fields is the better player. It's just the way it is. He's the better player. So I don't know why you're gonna, give Andy Dalton a chance. I mean, they struggled last week against the LA Rams, but why is Justin Fields not going to start? And I'm not sure if he's starting this week or not. If it still is Andy Dalton, why? If it is Justin Fields, good for you, Matt Nagy. You made the right decision. So I really don't understand that. I don't. So moving on here, the Houston Texans and the Cleveland Browns. This is a slept-on game. Houston played so much better than I thought they would last week. My Lord, Tyrod Taylor lit it up. I mean, Tyrod Taylor played fantastically. So why is Houston playing that well? Nobody knows. They're supposed to be a dumpster fire. I thought they were a dumpster fire, but apparently they played well. They put a whooping on the Jacksonville Jaguars last week, and Trevor Lawrence struggled, lost his first regular season game in his entire career. He had never lost a regular season game in high school. He never lost a regular season game in college. So his first loss ever in a regular season game was last week against the Houston Texans. I mean, the dude just doesn't know what it feels like to lose. I mean, but now he does after they lost last week. But with Cleveland, they gave a heck of a game to the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City last week at Arrowhead. They did. It was a lot of fun to watch. And Cleveland was in control of that game for most of the way, but Patrick Mahomes did what Patrick Mahomes does and just came back and won that game. So it was a great game, and I think we're going to have a good one here as well. Who knows how Houston's going to play? Was last week a fluke, or is Houston actually that good? They put up 37 on Jacksonville, a Jacksonville team who was on the ropes. I mean, you didn't know how they were going to do. I thought Trevor Lawrence would play better than he did, but you really don't know how Houston's going to play. Are they going to play as good as they did last week, or are they going to be what we thought they were and not be very good? So I don't know. You really don't know until you find out on Sunday at 1 o'clock. So that game, 1 o'clock on CBS in Houston in Cleveland at First Energy Stadium, Houston Texans against the Cleveland Browns. This next one, Indianapolis hosts the Los Angeles Rams. Everybody knows who has listened to this show, and everybody who knows me personally knows that I'm a Colts fan. Colts did not play well at all against the Seattle Seahawks last week. And Russell, and I didn't think they would win the game, but I thought they'd put up more than 16 or whatever they put up. I mean, I was incredibly disappointed by the way the offensive line played. I really was. You thought they would have been better. Julian Davenport should not be playing left tackle anywhere. The dude was not good. So hopefully, I think they're going to get Eric Fisher back this week, and I think they're going to put up more points than I thought they were. Well, than they did last week against the LA Rams. But you never know. The LA Rams have an incredibly good defense. Matt Stafford played incredibly well against Chicago last week on Sunday Night Football. So that should be a good one. I think the Rams win that game, but I think the Colts are going to play well. Buffalo at Miami. Miami beat the New England Patriots last week at Gillette in Foxborough. That was a fun game. Mac Jones played really well, better than I thought he would. So that's a fun one. It really is. And as far as the Buffalo Bills go, I thought they would be better. Pittsburgh beat them last week, but I thought they'd play better. I really did. So I think that we'll see. Buffalo play better. I think Buffalo wins this game, but Tua played well. Tua played better than I thought he would. I don't think personally that Tua is the long-term answer there in Miami. So we'll see what they decide to do. They also have Jacoby Brissett there, who is their kind of short yardage sneak quarterback kind of guy, kind of like what he did in Indianapolis last year with Phillip Rivers. So Brian Flores is obviously doing the same kind of thing with Brissett there in Miami. If you want to get in touch with the show, you certainly can. Follow me on Twitter at Parker Testa. We are on YouTube, so be sure to come to our YouTube comments. We're going to try to get our phones working so you can call into the show at some point. So we'll try to do that here in the coming weeks. It's not going to be today, but we'll try to make that happen for y'all here in the next couple weeks. This next game, San Francisco, Philadelphia. The Eagles played so much better than I thought they would. What a debut for Nick Sirianni as their head coach there in Philadelphia. Jalen Hurts played fantastically, and they have the San Francisco 49ers coming to town here this weekend at 1 o'clock at Lincoln Financial Field in Philly. So San Francisco and Philadelphia, I'm looking forward to that one. Pittsburgh and the Vegas Raiders is another one that's going to be fun. I think Ben's, I personally think this is his last year. But with all this Tom Brady nonsense going on, saying he's going to play until he's 50 or whatever he wants to do, I mean, great. Congratulations. I mean, you're just going to terrorize the entire NFL for the rest of your NFL career. Well, I mean, it's what it is. And so, but with Ben, I think this is his last year, personally. I do. That the Steelers, I think, are fed up with Ben. So, but if he plays well, who knows? Maybe he'll come back and the Steelers will let him keep playing. But I think he's way overpaid. I think he's making like $32 million or something like that per year right now. So at least this year. But Carolina at New Orleans. That Carolina game last weekend was kind of one that you're like, oh, okay, this is it's going to be crazy. That's one of the games that you're like, I mean, yeah, it happened. Great. It was one of those irrelevant games every week that you really don't think about. But Carolina won that game, so and Sam Darnold didn't play too badly, so good for him. But that's one that I think is going to be a really fun game. As far as New Orleans goes, are you kidding me? Wow. Jameis Winston played so much better than I thought he would. I mean, and it's not really about New Orleans. It's about the Green Bay Packers and how much we expected them to play better. But, I mean, are you kidding me? Aaron Rodgers didn't play good at all. He didn't. I mean, he comes back after all this nonsense and drama with Aaron Rodgers in the offseason. And he comes out and plays a performance like that. It got so bad to where they benched him for Jordan Love. I mean, I understand why you did it. If you're Matt LaFleur, you bench Aaron Rodgers because you're down by like 35. But I did not expect Green Bay to play that badly. I didn't. And I to be honest, I didn't expect Jameis Winston to play that well. I mean, if LASIK surgery was the answer to this, maybe more quarterbacks should have LASIK surgery. I mean, Jameis Winston lit it up. He threw for 5 touchdowns on only like 123 yards or something like that. The dude played so well. So, I mean, I get it that some people think that he shouldn't be, their quarterback, but it's better than Taysom Hill. Jameis Winston has all the experience there. He was the passing leader in 2019 in Tampa, and then was the backup to Drew Brees last year. So Jameis Winston deserves this chance, and he's got it here, and he's played very well last week. So we'll see if that continues. I'm excited to see this New Orleans-Carolina game here this weekend. Jacksonville at Denver. Teddy Bridgewater, I think, was the answer here this weekend, and he played well in Denver. He did. So I'm really excited to see what Teddy Bridgewater does this weekend. And granted, they played the New York Giants, so I mean that's not saying a whole lot. But I think this is a good contest for the Denver Broncos as they go to Jacksonville and take on the Jaguars. So this is one that Denver needs to, or I think the Jacksonville needs to win this game. I think Denver wins, but this is a one that you got to win for Jacksonville. There's all this drama with Urban Meyer saying that the players don't like him or whatever it is, but I think that if this is Denver, this is a good contest for you. It is. So Jacksonville, you got to play well. I mean, you didn't play well against the Houston Texans last week. So you got to play well here if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars. Arizona, I love this Arizona team. I really do. This Arizona team is so much fun. I love the system that Cliff Kingsbury is running there in Phoenix. I mean, that was a lot of fun to watch the Arizona Cardinals play. Kyler Murray is the perfect quarterback for the system that Cliff Kingsbury wants to run. They welcome the Minnesota Vikings, who took a loss in overtime to the Cincinnati Bengals, who we talked about earlier. This is shaping up to be a good one. I think Arizona wins this game, but Minnesota is not a pushover team. They played better than I thought they would. They have injuries, but I think Arizona wins this game. Tampa Bay, Atlanta. Atlanta completely, shut down last week. I don't know what happened. I thought Atlanta was going to be really good. At least better than they thought they would be, but Atlanta did not play good at all whatsoever. So this is one that I'm, thoroughly confused about. Why is Atlanta? I think they only put up like 6 points or something like that, which is incredibly disappointing. So, so they welcome the Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or actually they travel to Raymond James Stadium there in Tampa to play the Buccaneers, and I think Tampa wins that one as well. So Dallas, Los Angeles Chargers. Dallas played so much better than I thought they would on last Thursday night. They did. They gave Tom Brady the business, and I'm really excited to see what they do this week against Justin Herbert and the Chargers, who are coming off I think a win themselves. Yes, they are winning. They came off a win last week. So you got Los Angeles, who's the Chargers, who are coming off a win, looking for another one, and this Dallas team who took a defeat to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last week on Thursday night. And this Dallas team's going to be hungry for a win. And I think they'll get it here against the Chargers. So Dallas wins that one personally. Seattle, Tennessee. Tennessee is, I can't figure out Tennessee. I really can't. I like Mike Vrabel as a head coach, but they lose last week. To think of all the teams that are in the AFC South, the last team I would have expected to get a win last week is the Houston Texans, and they did. I mean, they're the only team in that division with a win. So, credit to David Coley, Tyrod Taylor, and the Houston Texans for, getting that win last week and handily. It was a fun one for sure to watch the Houston Texans take that win. So you have Tennessee at Seattle. Seattle beat the Indianapolis Colts last week in Indianapolis. Russell Wilson did what he does. He threw for like 4 touchdowns or something like that. The Seahawks won that game. DK Metcalf played well. He didn't play well for DK Metcalf. He had like 5 catches for 50 yards, and that's a bad day for DK Metcalf. But Tyler Lockett had 4 for 102 touchdowns, I think. So Tyler Lockett went off. They have a great offense there in Seattle. They do. And that's another place with quarterback drama that they had in the offseason with Russell Wilson. So I think Seattle wins this one. Tennessee is pretty confusing at the moment. So you have Tennessee, Seattle. I think Seattle wins it. Kansas City, Baltimore at M&T Bank in Baltimore is where that game will be played. Kansas City takes a visit to the Ravens, who lost to the Raiders last week. Or earlier this week on Monday Night Football. Raiders won that game, but it was personally, I think it was the best game of the week. I really do. That Monday Night Football game. And for a second, speaking of Monday Night Football, let's talk about how fantastic that Peyton Manning, Eli Manning broadcast of Monday Night Football was on Monday night. Oh, man. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, to watch two Super Bowl champion quarterbacks, brothers, Eli Manning, Peyton Manning, just sit there and talk football with, you guess, like Charles Barkley, Russell Wilson, Travis Kelce. I mean, it was so much fun to watch. Charles Barkley should commentate football more often. I mean, the dude shows up to this in a Raiders jersey because I guess he's a Raiders fan, or whatever he is. I mean, but he was wearing a Raiders jersey. It was so much fun. I've never seen anything like that. So, I mean, I'm going to be watching this more than I would the regular Monday night broadcast. As great as Steve Levy and Louis Riddick or whoever's on the Monday Night Football broadcast now is, that Peyton Manning, Eli Manning broadcast was so much fun to watch again, on Monday night. So if you didn't watch it, come watch it coming up here this on this week when Detroit visits Green Bay, because it's a lot of fun. But back to this Kansas City Baltimore game, I think Kansas City wins. Baltimore is kind of as good of a game as they had. I know they're at home, but I still think that Kansas City is just too damn good to Kansas City's going to win this game. That's the moral of the story here. This is, and then we have the Monday Night Football game, Detroit, Green Bay. DeAndre Swift played so well for Dan Campbell. I love Dan Campbell as a head coach. I said that on our summer show this summer. I love Dan Campbell when they made that hire. I mean, I would run through a wall for that guy, and I don't even know him. So I really think that this Detroit team is going to be a lot better than we think. As far as Green Bay goes, who the heck knows? I don't know. Are they going to play as bad as they did last week? This game is at Lambeau, so maybe the home crowd will help them a little bit. I don't know. I think Green Bay wins the game. I think it'll be close, low scoring, but I think Green Bay wins the game. So those are my kind of NFL picks here this week in week 2. NFL is back. College football is back. We'll get more into college football in another show. I don't have it on the slate for today, but we'll get into more college football in another show. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Pat Boylan of the Indiana Pacers is going to join us, talking so much, talking his career, broadcasting, the whole deal here. So stay tuned for Pat Boylan right here on The Perspective, WWSU 106.9 FM.
Hey, everyone. Check out Rush Week 2021, presented by Alpha Sig Eta Psi here on campus. To find out more information, check out their Instagram at ALPHASIGS_WSU. You're going to love it.
To some, the sound of a baby babbling doesn't mean much, but that's not true. They're testing out vowels and consonants and trying different sounds. And by 12 months, their babbling is beginning to take on meaning, especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Learn more at autismspeaks.org. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
To protect her home and family in a disaster, Karen was willing to wade through water, mud, and insurance paperwork.
Yeah, I can do this.
You go, Karen! By simply understanding and updating what her insurance covers and doesn't cover now, she'll be better prepared no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
A social distancing tip.
Putting distance between yourself and others is critical to slowing the spread of coronavirus. So here are ways to stay in contact without the physical contact part. Call, send a text, set up a video conference, post on social media, dedicate a song on the radio. If you have symptoms of fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going to their office. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part, because we're all #alone together. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? Would you notice a 16-year-old boy who got his first job
not for extra spending money, but to help feed his little sisters.
Or a mother who's in between jobs and sometimes goes to bed hungry so her kids can have dinner. I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Watch out! You got me!
The galaxy is safe once again.
In the pretend universe, kids play with pretend guns. In the real world, it's up to us to make sure they don't get their hands on a real gun. If you have a gun in the house, keep it locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Every day, men and women from communities across this nation serve as Reserve Citizen Airmen.
I am proud to defend our nation.
Proud to be part of a team that helps make a difference.
I am proud to be part of something larger than me and to serve my country.
We celebrate those who have served and those who are proudly serving in the Air Force Reserve. Our mission is to fly, fight, and win in air, space, and cyberspace.
I am proud to be a member. I am proud to protect our...
Proud to serve in the U.S. Air Force Reserve.
America, your children have an amazing superpower. That's right. They can help save lives by simply washing their hands. Just 20 seconds of thorough hand washing after they've coughed or sneezed or been outside can help fight against the dastardly spread of germs. Armed with only soap and water and hands, your superhero can protect you, your family, and everyone out there in America land. Amazing! Find out more at coronavirus.gov. A message from the CDC and the Ad Council.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Kesson. I am a nursing major here at Wright State, and you're listening to WWSU 106.9 Dayton's Right Choice.
Welcome back to The Perspective, everybody, here on WWSU 106.9 FM. Coming up, we have Pat Boylan. He's with the Indiana Pacers, radio announcer for the Indiana Pacers. Yeah, and he's also the sideline reporter on the Pacers television broadcast on Fox Sports Indiana. So, without further ado, here's Pat Boylan. Joining us now here on The Perspective is a man by the name of Pat Boylan. Pat's the play-by-play announcer for the Indiana Fever, also a sideline reporter with the Indiana Pacers on Fox Sports Indiana. Pat, thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, I appreciate you having me.
So you're, of course, with Fox Sports Indiana. Where did your passion for broadcasting originally come from?
You know, probably came from when I was pretty young. I want to say like middle school age. And growing up in Indianapolis, had just the incredible fortune of we had some of the best play-by-play announcers of anywhere in our city. And I grew up listening to somebody that I now get to work with, Mark Boyle, on the Pacers. At the time, Bob Lamey was really in his prime with the Colts. And Kristen Airy, who now is Pacers television, at the time was Butler basketball radio. And I just remember being fascinated by the fact that I could turn on the radio, listen to those guys call a game, and they could place an image in my head that almost felt like I was there or watching it on television. And I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world, to be able to combine sports and my love for sports with the ability to explain everything that's happening on the floor or on the field to an audience. And so, I went to Carmel High School in Indianapolis and went to Ball State, and was fortunate that both of those schools had a lot of opportunities for a young broadcaster to, kind of get his feet wet in the industry before going out into the real world.
So you're with the Pacers and also with the Indiana Fever. How did you originally get involved with that group?
Well, so when I was right out of college, I went to Bismarck, North Dakota. Everybody in the broadcast industry typically has to pay their dues somewhere. And for me, that was in Bismarck. It's as cold as it sounds. But it was a great job. I love my time there. It was doing television play-by-play, about 70 games a year for colleges and high schools in the North Dakota area. And one thing that I loved about it was the schedule was 70 or so games. It was September to late March. It more or less mimicked pretty closely an NBA season. And we were traveling by car, by truck to all these different areas throughout North Dakota. And I just remember thinking, well, this is similar to the grind of an NBA year. It's tough to get television play-by-play reps. this is, what I feel like will be a good opportunity for me. And when I was there for almost exactly a year, I still remember getting a call from Chris Denary, who has been a long-time mentor of mine, and Kevin Lee, who those in Indianapolis, if they're sports fans, might know. He had my job previous to me, but he also was with the Colts. He also does a ton with IndyCar. He was getting another opportunity to do some more stuff with the NFL, and it essentially made him unable to continue to do this. Chris Denary put my foot in the door, and then our boss, Jamie Burns, who is the vice president of broadcasting with the Pacers, but he's also the director on the TV broadcast. He, I'm sure, had a lot of applicants that had resumes that were longer and more impressive than mine, but he believed in me as really a kid that wasn't too far out of college at the time. And that was in 2014, 2015 Pacers season. So for chronology, I came in to the Pacers about a month after Paul George had that terrible leg break in Vegas before the Olympics. And that was my first year there. So it's kind of hard to believe I'm through 7 Pacers seasons and currently in the midst of my 7th Fever season.
So you've done broadcasting both on the radio and on television. What's your favorite aspect of what you do?
Well, so what I've always had a passion for, and what I still continue to hope to do at an even higher level than, the great opportunities I've been given so far, is play-by-play. And I love radio and I love TV. They're both very different. They might not seem that different, but if you're in the industry and you're in the medium, just like I'm sure aspects are in many different industries and many different careers, it's a fairly different game to call. So on radio, you're calling every little thing that you can point out because the person listening can't see. So they need every little bit of description that you can give them. On television, it can kind of be a bit more of a less is more type approach. You are captioning what they can already see. So you are finding the most important things to talk about and the most important moments to speak, and you're letting your color analysts do a bit more work. So they're both different mediums, but I have passion for both of them. And what I'm so fortunate about with my opportunity here is I get to be the play-by-play announcer for the Fever and in the WNBA. And I've gotten the opportunity to do that for 7 years and for 4 seasons. Getting to be the guy. I kind of shared the duties with Chris Denary my first 3 seasons in Indy. And then on the Pacers side, while I'm not the play-by-play announcer, I get to be a part of a team that has so many talented and really, frankly, legendary broadcasters. I'm talking Mark Boyle, of course, Chris Denary, but also Quinn Buckner, Jeremiah Johnson, the late Slick Leonard, Eddie Gill. To be a part of that team is really humbling. And I've had the opportunity as well. There's been a couple games that Mark couldn't do on the radio. There's been a couple games that Chris couldn't do on TV where I've gotten to fill in for them and gotten to do Pacers play-by-play on both radio and on television a couple of times. So I just feel extremely fortunate that I get to do both of those things. And because of when the WNBA season runs, it's essentially, it changes every year, but something like mid-May to mid-September, that means basketball really doesn't stop for me. When the Pacers season's coming to a close, the WNBA season's starting up. When the W season's coming to a close, the Pacers season's starting up. And if either of those teams have some success in the playoffs, oftentimes there's some overlap in those schedules as well. So for a basketball and a broadcast junkie, getting to work for those 2 teams in what essentially amounts to almost 12 straight months of basketball really is something that I feel extremely fortunate about.
So you mentioned Chris Denary as well as Eddie Gill, Jeremiah Johnson, and the late Slick Leonard, as people that you've been fortunate enough to work with. Do you have, or did you have some sort of a mentor to you, not before Chris Denary that was kind of, helped you get your foot in the door?
I didn't have one before Chris Denary because Chris Denary has been my mentor as long as I can remember. Chris moved into the neighborhood that I grew up in when I was probably 10 or so. And I have 2 younger brothers. He has 3 sons, and we're all in the similar ballpark and age range. And so my middle brother played basketball with his middle son, and I've gotten to know the Daenerys from a very young age. I walk to their house from my house. And so that was when Chris was at Butler doing Butler basketball, and I shadowed him when I was in 6th grade at a Butler game. And I remember sitting there courtside with him as he called the action back and forth, and just being amazed that this was a real job that Chris got to do. I had always been so fascinated by listening to those guys, but really it wasn't until I sat courtside with Chris and had the action in my ears and got to listen to him call the game that it really cemented that this would be a passion for me. And so Chris has been somebody that I've kind of been like a dog on a leash in terms of I followed him around and been bugging him for lunch when I was in high school and in college. You know, I would try to drive down a few times a year to get lunch or dinner with Chris. And, you know, fortunately, he saw something in me that made him feel like I was capable of doing this job. And that's so important, I think, in this industry, not only to have a mentor, but somebody that not only will spend time with you and give you guidance, but someone that genuinely believes in your abilities and your career. And I owe a ton of where I am, both as a broadcaster and in my career, to Chris. And since I have gotten with the Pacers, I've been fortunate to forge a couple more of those. Jamie, my boss, who I mentioned, is somebody that certainly is a coach for me, somebody that I look up to that's been in this industry for a very long time and done what he does at a director level for the broadcast for a very long time. And then Mark Boylan, somebody that I've gotten really close with over the last 7 years since I've gotten to work here. And Mark and Chris are both very talented broadcasters, but one thing that is just kind of a fascinating dynamic for me, they are both extremely good people. They both extremely have a passion for helping younger people. They got a leg up through help when they were, in their younger careers. And they both very much are passionate about giving back to the younger broadcaster. They're both very talented broadcasters. Outside of those 2 things, there's not a whole lot that they have in common. Mark and Chris are very, very different people and view the world in a very different way. And both in very positive aspects. They're just very different individuals. And so it's been fascinating for me. It's been extremely helpful for me to get to be as close as I am with both of those 2 and get to view, the broadcast and the world in general from a couple of fairly different lenses.
And I think that's really important to have that sort of mentorship to me. And those of you listening in the Dayton area, that mentor to me has been Shay Neal, who's about to graduate from Wright State. But I think what you're saying, Pat, is really important to getting a leg up in that. But you're a Ball State grad, and what was some of the things at Ball State that helped you kind of was there a learning curve when you had your first broadcasts, or was it kind of something that you struggled with early on?
I'm not sure if there was a learning curve, but the one piece of advice I give to anybody that wants to go into broadcasting, whether it's radio, whether it's television, I mean, heck, even if it's journalism, whether it's the written word, you have to find a school that's going to give you the opportunity to get those reps while you're in school. Now, there's a lot of different colleges that have a lot of different communications programs, but if where you are going does not give you the opportunity to get a bunch of reps as a college student, the book study in this field, it just only can take you so far. It's valuable. Having a degree is valuable. I learned stuff from those classes that I wouldn't have otherwise learned. But I would say 80 to 90% of what you need to learn as an up-and-coming broadcaster from college is the ability to be able to do it. And when I was at Carmel, I got 3 years of calling play-by-play on the radio for Carmel Athletics. When I was at Ball State, I got what I would say is like 3.5 years of experience doing play-by-play my freshman year. You can't really call Ball State sports your freshman year, at least at Ball State when I was there, because they already pick a lot of those teams the year before when you're still in your senior year of high school. But they do allow you, at the time they did at least, I'm sure they do now, the ability to go call high school games in the area. So I did some of that my freshman year. And then moved in as the play-by-play announcer for Ball State football, the student announcer, my sophomore year. And so what that really gave me is when I got to that job in Bismarck. It was my first job. It was a very new experience. It was the first time anyone was ever paying me to do anything, I think. Maybe I had a couple of small paying gigs here or there, but it was the first time anyone was paying me anything of substance to do anything in broadcasting. But I felt like it was year 8 for me because I had been doing this since my sophomore year at Carmel High School. And I think that is what helped me the most is I felt like when I got to Ball State, I was in year 4, and a lot of kids around me were in year 1. They weren't as lucky as I was to go to a high school that had as many opportunities as it did. And so, they were trying to hit the ground running, never really working for a student station before, where I had 3 years of experience doing that. And then when I got into the first gig in the real world, I kind of felt like I was in year 8, where there were some other people who felt like they were more like year 2, 3, 4, whatever. So I felt like that, almost base of the pyramid of education and learning when I was young was so vital because I didn't there were so many new experiences in that first job that definitely made me feel new to the broadcast world. But in a lot of ways, it was just, okay, do what you've been doing the last 7 years, just do it in Bismarck, North Dakota. And now, you have a paycheck to live up to. So
to this point, I know this is a very tough question, and I've asked this of all the guests we've had on. What are some of your favorite moments over the course of your career?
Well, I think for me, my favorite moments have been the opportunity to step into the big chair, if you will, with the Pacers. As I mentioned, I'm so fortunate to get to work in the WNBA and with the Fever. It's a remarkable organization. It's a remarkable league. I will be a WNBA fan for the rest of my life, whether or not I have the opportunity to work in the WNBA. It's something I take so much pride in. I think it's so important. But the opportunity to step in and do NBA play-by-play, when I was going into my second year with the Pacers, I was 25, 26. Mark was getting an award. Mark Boyle was getting an award for something he had done in the community, and he wasn't able to make a preseason game. If it was a regular season game, he probably would have skipped the award ceremony. But since it was a preseason game, he wanted to go to it. Our bosses cleared it off. It was just a preseason game, but it was the opportunity as a 25, 26-year-old, I can't remember exactly how old I was, to call NBA a dream of mine. And, I will never forget what it felt like to sit in that chair, put on that headset, get to call that game. A couple of years later, Kristen Airy, his son was getting married, and there was a game he couldn't do. Ended up being a game in Chicago against the Bulls, where I filled in for him on TV. So that was my first experience getting to do the Pacers on television. And that's still, a lot of people, when I'm doing interviews, they talk about, how you've made it to this point. And don't get me wrong, I take a lot of pride and passion in where I am right now. But in a lot of ways, in more ways than not, I'm still somebody that's on the ladder that is still trying to climb it. I want to be an NBA play-by-play announcer. And so those opportunities to step in there have just been, wow moments. And it was then a couple of years later where unfortunately Chris got a kidney stone the morning before a game in New York. And they called me up, said, hey, we think we're going to need you. We're going to have you on a plane in 90 minutes. You need to catch it to New York. I woke up that morning thinking I wasn't doing a whole lot that day except for getting ready for the game as the host and sideline reporter on the radio broadcast. Next thing I knew, I was in the Garden sitting courtside with Clyde Frazier to my left and Quinn Buckner on my right calling this game. I mean, I still laugh when I tell the story. It's been almost 2 years, and it's still so ridiculous and so surreal of a moment that, it's something I'll never forget. And then unfortunately, Mark was in a scenario where he was contact traced with COVID. He never actually caught it, but he was in a contact tracing scenario that took him out of a couple games this past season, and I got to fill in for him. And so I think I've had so much good fortune and so many great opportunities in this industry and with the Pacers and with the Fever, Pacers Sports and Entertainment. But it's those moments when, I've gotten to taste the the type of job that ultimately I aspire to be able to do one day full time. Those from a personal perspective stand out to me.
Pat, I can't thank you enough for your time. Great stuff from you today. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course. Appreciate you having me on.
That was Pat Boylan. I can't thank him enough for his time. And he just provided such great stuff and so many, just great insight into what, these guys do as professional announcers. So I really can't thank Pat enough for his time. It was a pleasure having him on this show. And he really, gave us some great insight into what he does. So to wrap up the show today, we're going to take a quick break, probably about 30 seconds or a minute. We're going to talk the MLB playoffs. So there's a really intriguing race going on in the MLB playoffs right now. So more MLB playoff and more perspective when we come back on WWSD 106.9.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them?
By their clothes,
their age,
the way they speak. Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Banks Strong, and the Ad Council.
Pass it on.
This time of upheaval is causing me to look a little deeper inside myself, looking for some goodness. And this is what I've found. I'm more aware of my neighbor's well-being. I'm saying thanks to those who help keep my life as normal as possible. My mail carrier, my grocery cashier, my delivery person. I find myself caring about others instead of just looking out for myself. And oh, my goodness, does it feel good. Goodness is in you.
Pass it on.
From PassItOn.com.
America, your children have an amazing superpower. They can help save lives by not having play dates. That's right. By replacing get-togethers with virtual play dates and video chats, they can help slow the evil spread of germs. And if your superheroes do go outside, make sure they continue their superhero wing by staying 6 feet away from others to protect everyone in America land. Find out more at coronavirus.gov. A message from the CDC and the Ad Council.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
Are you looking for excitement? Are you looking for adventure? Are you looking for good music? Tune on in to WWSU 106.9 FM, Fairborn, Dayton, Dayton's right choice, where every day feels like a new adventure.
Welcome back to the Perspective, everybody, here on WWSU 106.9 FM. About 9 or so minutes left of the show. Again, can't thank Pat Boylan enough for his time. There's some great insight into what he does, so I can't thank Pat enough for his time as always. So to wrap up here today, we're talking a few different topics. We're going to quickly touch on the MLB playoff race, and then the Red State women's basketball schedule, and that both non-conference and conference schedules were released yesterday. So we're going to get into that a little bit, but as far as MLB playoff race goes, it's a lot of fun. The AL is really up in the air right now. And when I say AL, I really mean the AL East, because it's a 3-team race for 2 wild card spots. Right now, the Boston Red Sox and the Toronto Blue Jays are both in the wild card spots right now. Toronto with that top spot, Boston with the second spot, and the New York Yankees just a half game back of the Boston Red Sox. It's a 3-team race right now, and I saw a tweet yesterday that couldn't have summed up that team race in the AL East any better, and that's the video from The Office where Michael, Dwight, and Andy are all standing together, and if you're on our YouTube feed, they're all standing together with guns made from their hands, and they're all just pointing them at each other, and no one's willing to budge, and I think that's perfectly sums up the AL East race right now for that top wild, or for those 2 wild card spots, because of course the Toronto Blue Jays lead that division, but the Tampa Bay Rays lead that division, but it's a 3-team race for 2 spots, and that's the most intriguing race in all of baseball right now. Behind them are two teams that have a chance if any one of those teams, kind of fall out of it a little bit. The Oakland Athletics are 3 games back. The Seattle Mariners are 4 games back. But I highly doubt any of those teams catch up. I really do. It's between the Jays, the Red Sox, and the Yankees right now for those 2 wild card spots. And it's going to be fun here as we go down the stretch. And in the NL, it just gets more fun. The Dodgers are 17 games up on that top spot, so no one's going to catch them. So it's really a 4-team race right now for that final spot between the Cardinals, the Padres, the Reds, and the Philadelphia Phillies. Personally, I think the Reds get in. I think the Reds are good enough to where they're going to squeak in there, and it's not going to be by much. It's going to be by a half game, maybe a game at the most. It's going to be slim, but I think the Reds sneak in there. There is a good chance that it's the Cardinals as well. I think the Padres are too inconsistent to make it into the playoffs this year. As good of a job as Jace Tingler's done there in San Diego, I think the Padres are too up and down. And I think they'll find a way to drop out of the playoffs. So I personally, I think it's the Reds that make it in here. I do. But that 4-team race between Phillies, Reds, Padres, and Cardinals is going to be fun. And it's right now where we stand, the Cardinals are in that spot. San Diego's a half game back. The Reds are 1 game back, and the Phillies are 2.5 back. But I think in the end, it will be the Reds that squeak into that final wild card spot. In the National League playoffs. To wrap up here today, we have Wright State women's basketball, and they released their non-conference and conference schedule yesterday. New coach Carrie Hoffman here at Wright State. I'm excited to talk to her and see what her mindset is. We're going to try to bring her on the show at some point to talk their schedule and their season. But we have a new coaching staff here for Wright State women's basketball, and this schedule is a fun one. For non-conference, they start out with Bradley on November 9th in Peoria. So they played Bradley game 1 last year at the Nutter Center. So they'll play Bradley again this time in Peoria. Right after that, they go to Toledo and take on the Toledo Rockets on November 13th. They play Xavier on November 24th at the Nutter Center. They have Marshall November 30th in Huntington, West Virginia. They take on Abilene Christian in Abilene, Texas on December 12th. Just like the men, they will play Lake Erie at the Nutter Center on December 15th. And then they take a trip to Bloomington, Indiana, and take on the Indiana Hoosiers on December 21st, right before Christmas. So that's their non-conference schedule. Then we get to the Horizon League play. They'll go to Milwaukee and take on the Panthers on November 18th. And then they'll host Milwaukee on January 29th. Milwaukee was a strong season last year. They had a 20-8 record, 15-5 in Horizon League play, and overall in the series, Wright State holds a slight lead over that, 35-32 overall against the Milwaukee Panthers. Green Bay, they will take a visit to Green Bay on November 20th, and they will host the Green Bay Phoenix at the Nutter Center on January 27th. Purdue-Fort Wayne, they will have Purdue-Fort Wayne December 3rd at the Nutter Center, and then they will travel to Fort Wayne on February 5th. Cleveland State, they host the Cleveland State Vikings December 5th, and then travel to Cleveland on February 3rd. UIC in Chicago on New Year's Eve, and then they welcome UIC to the Nutter Center on February 12th. They'll play IUPUI January 2nd in Indianapolis, and then welcome the Jaguars to the Nutter Center on February 10th. Youngstown State, they will host the Panthers on January 7th at the Nutter Center and then travel to Youngstown on February 20th. Robert Morris, they will welcome the Robert Norris Colonials January 9th to the Nutter Center and then travel to Moon Township, Pennsylvania and take on Robert Morris in their house on February 18th. Oakland, they will go to Rochester and take on the Oakland Golden Grizzlies on January 13th. And then welcome them to the Nutter Center on February 26th. Oakland had a 12-12 overall record last season and finished 12-8 in Horizon League play. Did not win a non-conference game last year, did the Oakland Golden Grizzlies. And then they'll have Detroit Mercy January 15th in Detroit. And they will welcome Detroit Mercy to the Nutter Center on February 24th. Finally, the series you all been waiting for, Northern Kentucky. They will travel to Highland Heights on January 20th and then flip around 2 days later. Northern Kentucky will be right here at the Nutter Center on January 22nd, just 2 days later. So that Northern Kentucky series is going to be a fun one with Wright State women's basketball. I'm really excited to see what Wright State women's basketball does here this season under new head coach Kerry Hoffman. We talked a little bit about the men's schedule on the WWSU is Back hour on Wednesday. So if you want to catch a little bit of the Horizon League men's basketball schedule with the Wright State Raiders, you can go over to our YouTube page right here on WWSU 106.9 FM on YouTube, and they will find the men's or our segment on the men's basketball schedule right there. So with that, I quickly want to plug Wright State women's volleyball travels up to Milwaukee, Wisconsin this weekend to take on in the Market Invitational. They beat, I believe, I think it was NIU or something. I saw something on Twitter. Wright State beat, let me pull it up here because I hate being wrong here live on air. And so we're going to pull that up really quick because, like I said, I hate being wrong here live on air. Wright State beat UNI. So I believe that's University of Northern Iowa. Wright State beat UNI in 4 sets, 3-1. UNI took the first set, and then Wright State won the next 3 and took the match. So tonight they will play Marquette at around 8 o'clock tonight. You can catch that up there in Milwaukee. I believe that game will also be on ESPN+, so be sure to catch that there. So speaking of volleyball, the next time Wright State comes back to McLean Gymnasium, we will have a watch party right here in the WWSU studios, so be sure to check that out. That'll be on Saturday, September 25th from 3:30 to 6. You can come here to the WWSU studios and catch that game. We will have video playing for that, so be sure to check that out. So with that is our show today, ladies and gentlemen. I can't thank all of you enough. I'm so excited to have this show back here on air. We have so many fun interviews coming up next week. We will have UCF and former Wright State head baseball coach Greg Lovelady, current head coach at the University of Central Florida. He joined us. We talked so many different topics here with Greg Lovelady, so that will be next week's show. And in the wise words of my good friend Mark Knoll, there is nothing else to report here on The Perspective. Thank you for joining us, everybody, this afternoon, whether you joined us on WWSU 106.9 FM or on YouTube. I so greatly appreciate it. We will be back next Friday, sign time, 2 o'clock, as always. And it was a lot of fun today. So if you enjoyed the show, be sure to reach out to me on Twitter at Parker Testa. All our interviews will be posted on our YouTube page of The Perspective, WWSU 106.9. You can catch all our interviews there from this edition of the show. I guess we're going to call this season 2. I don't know. But we'll come up with a proper name for it. But you can catch all of our interviews on The Perspective's YouTube channel. That, once again, is The Perspective, WWSU 106.9 FM. All of our interviews are posted there right after the show, so be sure to catch those. Like I said, Greg Lovelady will join us next week. For all of you out there listening, thank you so much. We will talk to you next week. Happy birthday, Grandma. We'll talk to you next week.
Hi, I'm Rianne. You're listening to WWSU 106.9 FM, Fairborn, Dayton. Dayton's right choice.